Special counsel John Durham was on Capitol Hill testifying in front of the House Judiciary Committee, and he dropped several bombshells. Unfortunately, the left-wing legacy media, not surprisingly, did not give it the time of day. Durham spent over 5 hours taking questions about his report that exposes massive explosive details that show the weaponization of the FBI and law enforcement to target a presidential campaign and launch a, quote, investigation that subsequently overshadowed, falsely, by the way, the entire term of President Trump. Listen, this is very personal for me, very personal. There was not a day from Election Day moving forward we didn't have to deal with this BS, trying to prove our innocence in something that just didn't exist. Now, think about this. We overcame the odds. And by we, I mean all of those, and you included, that worked to help then candidate Trump win and win big. The Democrats and their media buddies were ashamed and demoralized. I get it, rightly so. They blew that election. But instead of accepting defeat, they made up excuses and lies about why they lost. So let me just get some key facts out of the way about what Durham presented to the Congress. The FBI opened what is now known as Crossfire Hurricane within 3 days. I mean, think about it. 3 days of getting accusations. You don't have to be in law enforcement or an FBI agent to think it sounds nuts that a criminal investigation opens within 3 days of them getting their first tip. And those 3 days, by the way, occurred over a weekend. I mean, listen, I've been around government long enough to know that there isn't much that happens on a weekend in Washington when it comes to people here working. So that in itself should have been a red flag. And let's be clear, this isn't any just investigation. This was an investigation into a presidential campaign and candidate. I mean, you would think at some point maybe the bar would be just a little bit higher because of the nature of who you're investigating. And by the way, not only did they launch this in 3 days, they didn't interview a single witness before opening this investigation, including the people who gave them the information to base it all on. They just took the word of these political hacks and dove in head first. Durham was clear when he addressed the Congress that they lacked a credible basis to begin this investigation. Durham detailed what he called confirmation bias, basically how red flags were ignored or not explored at all because they were only looking for what confirmed their bias. That is, that Trump was bad, and they overlooked anything that might not strengthen the case to help him. Once you learn more about the people leading the FBI and the investigation, you get it. You think about a guy like Peter Strzok, a senior FBI executive. He literally is texting another FBI employee, Lisa Page, that there's no way that Trump will be president. In one text to her, he says, quote, no, we will stop it. Let that sink in and think about that. A very, very high up executive at the FBI tells another employee of the FBI, we're going to stop it. Stop it. This is an election. This isn't what's supposed to happen in this country. The FBI and CIA directors and others received briefings about intelligence suggesting that there was a Clinton campaign plan underway to stir up a scandal tying Trump to Russia. The accuracy of the intelligence was uncertain, but the FBI failed to analyze or assess the implications of this intelligence in any meaningful way. When the FBI learned that the primary source for the Steele dossier, Igor Danchenko, whom the FBI previously suspected of being a Russian spy, it nevertheless signed him up as a paid FBI informant without further investigating, to say nothing of resolving these espionage charges. And when the FBI and Special Counsel Mueller's office learned that Steele's primary source likely had gathered important portions of the dossier information during travel to Russia with Charles Dolan, it inexplicitly decided not to interview Mr. Dolan or investigate his activities. unbelievable. By the way, in the lead up to the 2016 election, it became clear that this investigation had been briefed to the president and the vice president. That would be Obama and Biden. And the briefer was the FBI director himself, James Comey. But guess who the director of the FBI never briefed on some of those aspects? The actual agents leading the investigation. When Durham was talking about this investigation, he talks about how he actually went and informed the agent who'd been leading the effort what had been held from him by the director. The agent himself was embarrassed because he learned that he hadn't been given all the information that he should have. It was clear that the leadership of the FBI was seeking a specific outcome. That is, they were targeting President Trump, not leading a real investigation. But it gets much worse. To justify their investigation, according to Durham, quote, "We charged a former FBI lawyer who pleaded guilty to the felony offense of altering and fabricating a portion of a document used to obtain court renewal of FISA's surveillance of Carter Page." I mean, think about that. The intelligence doesn't support the warrant. The agent goes in and changes it to support the outcome. How would you like to be Carter Page? This isn't some rogue local sheriff. This is the FBI. The FBI. You know, I grew up thinking that these were the good guys, the gold standard of law enforcement. I want to read you, though, another portion of Durham's testimony. He wrote, "Many of the most significant issues documented in the report, including those relating to a lack of investigative discipline, failure to take logical investigative steps, and bias, are relevant to important national security interests. If repeated or left unaddressed, these issues could result in significant national security risks and further erode public faith in our justice system." That's a big deal. He went on to say, rather, what is required is accountability, both in terms of the standards to which our law enforcement personnel hold themselves and in the consequences they face for violations of law or policy. The findings set forth in this report are serious and deserve attention from the American public and its representatives. I mean, he talks about finding troubling violations of law and investigations being directed at a presidential campaign. But I want to be very clear how serious this really is. I mean, stop for a moment, because that's what he asked us to do. The top law enforcement agency in America tried to influence, and not just influence, they thought they were actually fixing an outcome of an election for president of the United States to lead the free world. For all of the talk we have about Russia and other outside influences who are trying to influence our election, it's clear that the biggest threat influencing a U.S. election is our own government agencies. Like Special Counsel Durham, I'm disappointed that there hasn't been more accountability. I'm sure that you are too. I mean, more people should be in jail for what happened, for what they did, what they covered up, what they knew. At least, though, if there's any silver lining, we now know what happened. Or at least maybe we've started to learn what happened and what we're up against so that we can prevent it from happening again. Well, if you enjoyed this video, click the like button, subscribe, and ring the bell to make sure that you never miss another video.